Shalom.
even to the 10th generation. None of them may enter the assembly of the Lord forever.
May I see?
Because they did not meet you with bread and with what? Excuse me, what are you doing?
What is your name?
Elam.
Your friend Elam has a withered hand.
Are you a healer?
It is not lawful to heal on Sabbath.
Which one of you who has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath will not take hold of it and lift it out?
Who are you to speak to our congregation in such a
Of
way?
how much more value is this man than a sheep?
Stop this at once.
Come here. Come stand here. It's okay.
Elam, sit down. We don't know this person. He could be a shaman.
Is it lawful on Sabbath to do good or to do harm? To save life or to kill?
This affliction does not threaten his life.
It does not even affect his health.
Lift it up. Stretch it out. Feels good, huh?
If he was supposed to be healed, God would have done it himself.
Interesting point.
Get out.
Gladly.
Blasphemer!
What is wrong with you?
Apparently everything.
Wait! Come back! How dare you!
Are they going to send the town guards after us?
I think those guys are the town guards.
All right, so for those of you who didn't see, first he interrupted the reading simply by standing next to this guy with a paralyzed hand. And then the priest. What?
Reaping or harvesting on Shabbat.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I've been so hungry, I forgot what day it is.
You may.
No, get back.
Out of the way.
You have made a mockery of our little synagogue and of Torah.
You will tell us your name, your lineage, your virtue, and now your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath.
Have you not read what David did when he was in need and was hungry? He entered the house of God in a time of Ahimelech, the priest, and ate the bread of the presence, which was not lawful for him to eat, but only for the priests.
You would compare yourself to David.
It was an emergency.
Or have you not read in the law how on Shabbat the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath, but are guiltless?
That's for Levites. Are you a Levite of priestly lineage?
Listen carefully. Something greater than the temple is here. And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath.
The Son of Man.
Let's go.
Morning to everybody in the room. Good morning, everybody watching online. My name is Pete. I'm one of the pastors here, and we will talk about that clip, and it will make sense in a few minutes from now. But first, I want to tell you about an itch that I started getting about a year ago. And you will know this itch because you've probably had it before. When you see something that somebody else has, and you're like, I think I want to get one of those. And I think when I see them with the thing, that they look really happy. And I think if I also got the thing, I would experience the same kind of happiness. And so you begin to do some Google searches and you begin to look for it. And then what happens after you do one Google search or you talk about it with your spouse one time, what happens then? Then it starts showing up in your feed over and over. It's like, hey, we think you might like this. We think you might like this. And you're like, I would like that. Facebook, how did you know I would like that? And so this happened to me. I saw a friend of mine, and it seemed like more and more friends of mine were getting these things called smartwatches. And I saw them playing with these little gizmos. I saw them talking into them like they're secret agents. Like you get a phone call and you're like, hello, yes. And then you can do all your things. You get all your notifications. Then, this was really the hook for me. Then it was like, did you know you can track your workouts? Did you know that it will track, like no matter what workout you do, it'll track how many reps you're doing. You can tell it okay, that one, I did 6, and then you start and stop, and it'll track the whole thing and give you a printout of this is what your workout looked like. I'm like, well, now I need it just for my health. Okay, this isn't just a thing I want. This has become a need. And so I got one, and I was so happy, and it's so cool, and I can wear it, and it's it just looks like a normal watch, but it's not. It can do so many special things. And slowly, though, as I had this watch, I started to realize, it sure does interrupt a lot of things. Every push notification that I could get on my phone from any app on my phone suddenly is right here now. And so I'd be studying, just imagine me studying the Word of God on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm deep in prayer, and then Justin Fields is starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Oh, it's important. Oh, maybe I gotta adjust my fantasy lineup. Oh, okay, back to the Bible. Okay. I'd be meeting with someone pastorally, connecting soul to soul. I'm got an email. Oh, what are we having for dinner? Oh, sorry, I'm listening. Suddenly I'd be with my kids, and I would have the discipline. I would take my phone out. I'd be like, I'm gonna put my phone away to go be with my kids and be fully present. Oh. But it's all still coming through. It's all still coming through right here. I started realizing this is like a distraction machine. This is constantly pulling my attention, constantly reminding me. And I realized you know what I've done? I've actually strapped to myself anxiety. I've strapped to myself every person that I know or that knows me or that can look me up on Facebook or find my email on the church's website. Every one of those people. They can get right to me at any point of the day. And I've decided, you know what I want to do? It's not good enough that I have it there. I want to strap that to myself. I realized I've strapped every notification, I've strapped every email, I've strapped all these, and I started thinking my own, I'm 36, and my own journey with technology. And how when I was younger, my parents first got a Windows computer, and it lived in the basement in the office. And it was cool. You could go there and you could interact and have a technology, experience all the wonderful things, but it was there and it was limited. And then as I got older, we came up with these things called laptops because you don't want to just have to go to the office, this special room. What if we could bring it around with us to all kinds of other rooms, to coffee shops? Oh, this sounds fantastic. Then somebody said, you know what? It sucks that it's so big. What if we could just put it here and then just put it in your pocket and you could have it with you all the time? Well, that sounds fantastic. Let's do that. Let's connect it to the internet, connect it to everybody else. That's great. I think we've gone far enough, haven't we? No, we have not gone far enough. And then someone said, let's strap it to ourselves. So that if you have to put it down for a second, maybe that needs to get recharged, you won't be without your entertainment and your distractions. And I thought about this progression that I've experienced in my life, and I was like, this technology is almost like a boa constrictor snake that is like slowly like entering into our lives and slowly wrapping itself around us and taking up more and more of our mental energy and our attention and our focus. And I thought, I've already seen it. I know where we're going next. It's not good enough that it's strapped to us. Let's put it in our glasses. Let's make special glasses so that everything that you see, you could be looking at somebody, I could be preaching up here, and I could be watching the football game over in the UK right now. And I could be getting emails, and I could be maybe like through my winks, I could like Morse code text to people, I don't know. Like that's where we're going. Like it's not good enough, we need it in our glasses. It's crazy. This is the world that we live in. And slowly, I don't know if you've felt this, but I feel like slowly this technology, it's strangling us and it's stealing from us the life that we were created to live. This experience that I've had with this watch, which I now have a love and mostly hate relationship with, I think is symbolic of the time that we live in. It's symbolic of so many things. Symbolic that we live in a world of materialism. This if I just get these things, if I get those things, then I'll be happy. There's certain things that I don't have, and when I feel a lack or unsatisfied, it's because I don't have the certain things that I need. And if I get those things, that's what will make me happy. We live in a time of constant distraction and entertainment where we are gladly welcoming in noise into our life. I don't want to sit with my thoughts. Ugh. Sit with me. Do you know me? Ugh. I don't want to do like deep interior work where I talk about like, how's my soul? How am I doing? Oh, I don't want to do that. Like, give me distraction every moment of the day. We live in this distracted world. We live in a hurried world where it's almost like we're fighting against time. Like nobody has enough time for anything. Everybody's on their way to the next thing. Hey, you want to have a conversation? Let's go meet outside and sit in the grass after church. No, I got places to be. I got to go do things. Like we have this hurried culture. It is like a badge of honor to say that you're a busy person. Hey, how you doing today? I'm good, but I'm busy. What does that mean? Good, but busy. It means good and important. I'm good and I am needed elsewhere. So don't hold me up here too much. We live in this culture where like to say that you're busy is to say I'm one of those successful people that is needed. We live in a culture where we keep, every year we are working more and more and more, and we are sleeping less and less and less, and it is slowly draining the life out of us. And today what I hope to do is introduce us or remind us that there is a completely other way of life that we can step into and walk in. In the Bible, in the first couple pages of the Bible, we get a whole host of themes and ideas that the biblical writers will pick up and then carry through and develop throughout the rest of the Bible. First couple chapters of the Bible in the book of Genesis, there are ideas and themes that get carried through and developed throughout the rest of Scripture. And what's really interesting, if you ever want to study the Bible, is that you can pick one of these themes and then you can do the work of tracing it through Scripture and then find how it works itself out and how it gets developed and eventually fulfilled through Scripture. One of these ideas is the idea that after God created, that he spent 6 days creating, and after he creates, what does he say? It's so good. And it's so beautiful. Oh, it's so wonderful. After the 6 days of creating, what does God do? He rests. In the book of Genesis, chapter 2, we find this. It says this, "But the heavens and the earth were completed with everything that was in them. By the seventh day, God finished the work that he had been doing, and he ceased on the seventh day all the work that he had been doing. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it, he ceased all the work that he had been doing in creation." 6 days of creating, and on the seventh day, this God rests. He rests as an example for us, as if a way to say like, knit into the fabric of this creation is going to be a rhythm of work and rest. Work and rest. And I, as your God, want to model for you what that looks like. So watch me work and then watch me rest. And many theologians have pointed out that throughout this first creation narrative that we get in the first couple chapters of Genesis, that God blesses three things. So in all of the work of creating that he does, specifically there are 3 times where it says that God blesses what he has done. First, he creates animals and he blesses them. And he says, this is good. I bless you. Be fruitful and multiply. Then he creates us, humans, and he blesses us. And he says, be fruitful and multiply. And then he creates the 7th day rest. And it says that he blesses this day. But it doesn't say be fruitful and multiply, because it's almost like the author at this point wants us to catch on to the rhythm and fill that blank in for ourselves. That what comes with God's blessing is this ability or this attribute of being fruitful and multiplying. And so many theologians have pointed this out. They say it's almost as if we're supposed to read into the text that this 7th day rest, that this 7th day is meant to have a life-giving property to it. That the 7th day rest is meant to have this regenerative property to us, that it would be a time when we would be filled up for the other 6 days where we would work in God's good and beautiful creation. So in the first couple pages of the Bible, we get this theme. And then in the next book of the Bible, the book of Exodus, we find that this theme gets picked up again, where God selects his people, the people of Israel, and he rescues them from the hand of Egypt. This group of people who are slaves in Egypt. And all they know their whole lives has been, we make bricks. We make bricks for the empire of Egypt. Who's at the top of the empire of Egypt? Pharaoh, who calls himself a god. And so all our lives, for generation after generation, what we do is we make bricks for the God of Egypt, because that's what he wants. Who are you, Israelites? We are brick makers. We work every day. We make these bricks until it kills us. That's who we are. And the God Yahweh rescues these people from this life. And he pulls them out, and as they begin to wander with God in the desert, God begins to institute practices and give them commands that will begin to shape their new identity as his people. And as God begins to shape this new identity, he institutes very early on in their wandering something that he calls a Sabbath rest. Sabbath, simple definition, means to stop. Rest is the idea of just being with God, putting away all your work, resting, delighting in God's presence and all that he has created. Delighting in God's presence and all the wonderful things that there are in creation. Very early on, as God begins to shape these people's new identity, he says, one day a week, you will have a Sabbath, a stop, and you will rest. And he begins to miraculously provide food for them. 6 days, they are to collect this food, only as much as you need for that day. But on the 6th day, you're allowed to collect double so that you don't have to go collect it on the 7th day. God gives very specific commands. He's like, on the days leading up to Sabbath, only gather what you need. You have to trust me that every day I will provide for you. But on the 6th day, you can gather double, because on the 7th day, if you were to go out of your tent and look for it, it's not gonna be there. And so God begins to build into these people this new rhythm. You are to work because work can be good, but you are also to be people who rest. People who one day a week, as one rabbi said, you surrender your autonomy to God. Isn't that a great line? That one day a week, you need to remind yourself for a whole day, you're not God. One day a week, you need to remind yourself and actually get this gift from God that says, you're not what you do for me. All the work that you're doing, I don't actually need you to do that. And so spend one day doing nothing and watch how the world still keeps going and how I sustain you even as you don't work. God is shaping these people in this. And then a couple chapters later, we end up at Mount Sinai, and God gives the famous 10 commandments. And one of these commands, the 4th one, is to honor the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. This is God saying, this day is so important to me. It's so important to you that if I could give you 10 rules, this is gonna be one of them. And many people have commented that the first 4 commands that we find in the book of Exodus chapter 20, that they all have to do with our relationship with God. So the first one is don't have any other gods before me. Don't make any images of me. Don't speak about me in vain. Don't use my name, which is connected to my essence of who I am. Don't use my name in vain. And then the 4th one is honor the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. And so you could read this list as when you get to the 4th one, it's like in order to keep the first 3, you need the 4th one. In order to not accidentally or on purpose or slowly drift away and start to worship other gods and create other idols for yourself, in order to not accidentally or on purpose begin to speak about me in ways that I should not be spoken about, you need to once a week come back to me and rest in me and remind yourself of the story of how I rescued you and just be my people. And I think that you can see in that there's a rhythm to that as you do that it will become easier and easier. Of course I wouldn't put another God before you. Of course. Spend one day a week remembering how good you have been to me. And so in the first couple books of the Bible, you get this theme developing that God desires to give his people rest. That God says to people, I want you to stop. You are actually allowed to stop and let me be God. You can surrender your autonomy to me and find that I am a God who wants to take care of you. So one day a week, entrust yourselves to my care. How do you think the people do with that? Many of you already know. How do the people do with it? Right from the beginning, they stink at it. Right from the beginning in the book of Exodus, when God institutes this manna is going to be found on the ground and collect it for 6 days, but don't get more than you need. And then on the seventh day, there's not going to be any. Right away, it says that the people are hoarding more than they need. And when they wake up the next morning, there's maggots in it as a way for God to say, I told you not to hoard more than you need. And so Moses is like, oh man, I can't believe these people, they can't even follow this simple direction. But they're having trouble early on trusting that God will actually continue to provide for them. And then it says early on the seventh day, many of them went out of their tents and they're like, where's the stuff that we usually eat? And they couldn't find any. And Moses is like, yeah, God told you that there wouldn't be any on the seventh day. Why is it so difficult for you to trust the words of God? And then as you read throughout the rest of the Old Testament, you find that the prophets are continually warning and continually calling the people back to practice the Sabbath and to keep the Sabbath holy, which is an indicator to us that they didn't do it. And that probably a big part of their wandering away and continuing to worship other idols and pick up practices that are not befitting the people of God is because they weren't honoring the Sabbath day and constantly coming back to remember who God was and who he had called them to be and to just enter into his rest. And by the time that we get to Jesus, this idea of Sabbath rest had become so distorted that it was like a burden around people's necks. It was like something heavy and weighty, and people were always getting in trouble for it. And Jesus actually has to remind us that it was meant to be a gift. It's almost comical because God gives this gift of rest. And what we see by the time of Jesus, what people have turned it into is just another form of work. God's like, one day we want you to stop working. And we're like, okay, we'll do that. And then we eventually take that idea of stopping working and we turn it into another kind of work. And Jesus has to come and remind us, this was always meant to be a gift to you. The writer Mark writes it this way in the story that we watched just before I came up here. In Mark chapter 2, verse 23, he says this, one Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields. And as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath? He answered, have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for humanity, not man for the Sabbath. Jesus comes and he reminds us, you think God needs you to obey this rule? He doesn't need you to obey this rule. He's giving you this as a gift so that you wouldn't become the people that you were back in Egypt, slaves to work and just seeing yourselves as we have to produce and work and earn all of the time. Jesus comes and he reminds us this is meant to be a gift. And then he also makes another shift. where he says that this symbol or this sign of Sabbath, this routine that you were meant to build into your lives, was actually always pointing at something bigger. It's actually always pointing to someone else. It was actually always pointing to him. Matthew does this in a really clever way that I think sometimes we can miss in the book of Matthew, because we put these chapter breaks in the Bible, which are really helpful, and it's great to be able to reference them, and I think it's great that we have them in our Bibles. But sometimes we put chapter breaks where there were never meant to be a break, and so we can miss that a theme is being carried through. And so in the book of Matthew, if you look at Matthew chapter 12, right at the beginning of Matthew chapter 12, there's two stories about Sabbath. And they're the two stories that we just saw on the screen earlier. The story of Jesus giving permission to his disciples that they can pick grain out of the fields on the Sabbath, and the story of Jesus healing the man's shriveled hand on the Sabbath. And in these stories, Jesus, just like I read from Mark, says these words like, the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. It's Jesus pointing to himself. He's like something greater than the Sabbath is here. And if you were just to read these in isolation and you're like, I want to read Matthew chapter 12 today, you might miss that Matthew actually wants you to connect what's happening here to the lines that he puts right above it, which is at the end of Matthew chapter 11. And at the end of Matthew chapter 11, right before we get these stories of Sabbath and Jesus saying that he's the Lord of the Sabbath, Jesus says this: "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Right before these stories of Jesus freeing people from the burden of Sabbath, you get Jesus inviting people to come to him. You get Jesus pointing to himself as the ultimate Sabbath rest. It's like this little wink. It's this little thing that Matthew's doing where he's saying this theme that you've been reading all along and that you've been taught all of your lives about this God who wants to give you rest and wants you to learn this rhythm of rest and has given you this gift of Sabbath rest is being fulfilled in Jesus. The Sabbath day, the Sabbath command was always meant to be a sign and a symbol and a shadow that would ultimately be fulfilled in the person of Jesus. That we could come to him and find the fullness of God's rest. That the Sabbath was only ever a shadow of. And so we can come to Jesus. And through him, we can be brought back to the Father who desires to give us good gifts. And one of those is his presence and his rest. And so we live in a world that is getting busier and busier, and we are getting more and more distractions offered to us, and we are getting more and more unhealthy and inviting more and more anxiety and depression into our lives. And into this world, we're also given the Bible, which gives us a different way of life, and gives us a picture of a God who says you can stop. You can actually stop and rest. And when we say, God, I got other ideas, I don't really want to stop, I don't want to rest, this God pursues us. And in the cacophony of information and distractions that we invite into our lives, he pursues us in the person of Jesus, who keeps calling out to us in the midst of our anxiety and our ever-increasing busyness. He keeps calling out to us saying, come to me, I'll give you rest. You feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're worried about the future all the time. You're worried about, do I have enough money in the bank account? Will my job sustain me long enough and my family long enough? And Jesus is saying, you don't have to carry that all the time. Come to me and let me give you rest. You're tired of trying to be good enough to earn love from other people and earn love from God. And Jesus says, you can put away that works project and you can come to me and I will give you rest. And on this long weekend of Thanksgiving, I thought maybe that's just the simple word that we need. just to hear Jesus speak. Sometimes, you ever like listen to a sermon for like a long period of time and then you just get to the words of Jesus and you're like, that's all I needed? Like, that's all I want for you this morning is just to hear these words from Jesus. Come to me, I will give you rest. How many? Oh, that's all I needed. Okay, Pete, roll the credits. We're good. Come to me and I will give you rest. But I also thought, as I was preparing this sermon, I thought so many of us will hear those words and hear the invitation to commune with him and to rest in him. And we will say something in the back of our minds akin to, oh, that sounds cool, but I'm kind of doing okay. Like, I got the watch thing going and my phone is constantly distracting me and I'm way too busy at work and I kind of neglect my wife and my kids. But overall, I'm kind of fine. Like, I'm making it through. And I wanted to just say to you that slowly you are being worn down and slowly you are being crushed and cut off from God. And that the road of this, like, I don't really need rest. I don't really need that. Like, I'll just stay on this hamster wheel. Eventually it leads in your destruction. Eventually the boa constrictor of technology and our hurried culture will constrict you and strangle the life right out of you. And so I wanted you to hear this invitation from Jesus this morning. Come to me and I will give you rest. And you may be wondering, well, what does that look like? Does that mean we got to have like a day? We got to, like in the Old Testament, there's a day and we got to have like 6 days of work and we got to take a whole day off. I don't think that we're supposed to see it as a command for us anymore. For us now, we don't have the command of a day. We have a new Sabbath rest and it is found in our communion with Jesus. But I do think that there is wisdom here. Jesus says that the Sabbath was created for us. It was a gift for us. And I don't know about you, but I want every gift that God has for me. Like, I don't want God to be like, would you like this gift? And I'm like, no, I don't need all your gifts. I got some of your gifts. That's good enough. Like, I want them all. And so if Jesus says that this was made for a gift for me, then I want to investigate that and be like, what does that mean to let that into my life? And so maybe for some of you, it means a whole day. And you've got the rhythm in your life where you could actually make that day and you could prepare for that day, that half day, that few hours every week, but you could actually start to enter into this rhythm of like, this is when I work, and this is when I rest. For some of you, it may mean like looking at your schedule and saying, we got way too many things going on. Like the kids' schedule is actually drowning our family's life, and we need to simplify and do less so that we have more time to just be a family and just be present and enjoy creation and enjoy God's gifts to us and enjoy God's presence with us. Some of you need to spend more time alone. You're like, you know what, that whole alone thing, every once in a while I hear a pastor talk about like being alone with the Bible and with God, and you're like, I never really do that. If you do that, that's where rest can be found. That's where Jesus, by his Spirit, through his word, will speak to you and comfort your soul. When you take off your watch and you take off your phone and you put it in another room and you just get alone with Jesus, some of you, that's the invitation for you this morning. Hey, you used to do this when you were a kid, and now you're just too grown up for it. I'm calling you back. Come away with me and get some rest. I know this is Thanksgiving weekend, and I thought for some of us, this is a great weekend of rest. For some of us, it's a great weekend of rest. Like if you're younger, like me, and you still have parents that are going to do all the cooking and the cleaning and the taking care of your kids, like I can't wait. When I'm done this sermon, I'm going to 2 days of pampered. It's going to be great. But I also know that it's a busy weekend because we're going to be driving and on the road and getting the kids ready and they're out of their routines, and that takes more energy. And some of you are the cooks in the houses. Like, who are the cooks among us? You're like, this is not a weekend of rest for me. This is a weekend of cooking and cleaning. And how come nobody helps me, right? That's what you're thinking. And so if you're in that camp, I wanted to not just talk about how maybe you need to institute these rhythms and think about this later this week or later today, but I wanted us to end this morning with a moment of rest. And so I'm gonna invite the worship team to come back up, and they're gonna sing a song over you that I hope will be a blessing to you and will be a moment when you can enter into his rest right here, right now, because he is present with us. God is always present with us, but he's present right now, right with you wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this. He is with you right now, and he wants your attention. He wants your attention. He wants your focus. And so I want to create a moment where we can deliberately give him our full attention and expect to receive back from him a rest that we cannot find anywhere else. His presence wants to say to you this morning, I know you, and I see you, and I love you. I know whether you had a good week or a bad week. I know whether you would want this week recorded as like, look at how great I was, or whether you're like, this was the worst week. I did so many bad things and got so many bad rhythms. He knows all of that, and still he loves you, and he's inviting you into this gift of his rest. We have this thing that we do with our kids where if it's a day where we're like, hey, at the end of the day, maybe if we're good, we'll do like ice cream or a trip to the dollar store and we'll get like a little toy or something. And then at the end of the day, sometimes it was like a bad day. And so the first time this happened, my wife and I are like, well, what do we do? Do we not do ice cream? Because, to be honest, we kind of want ice cream too. And so I was like, I think I know what to do. So we sat them all down, and I said to them, I walked them through why it was a bad day. I was like, you hit him, remember? You hit him, and then you hit him back, remember? And then you still are peeing all over the toilet seat, disgusting, and you were crying all day. And I build up this narrative that has them thinking, crap, we're not going for ice cream. And then at the end of like the long list of everything, and I say, but you know what, guys? We're still going for ice cream. And I've done this enough now that then I ask them a follow-up question. I say, and what's that called? And they say, it's grace, Dad. Thanks, Pastor Dad. It's grace. It's grace. But I'm confident that I am building into them what God's grace looks like and what it feels like when you don't deserve something and you get a gift anyways. And so maybe today you're feeling like, I haven't earned his rest. You don't need to earn his rest. He knows you, and he sees you, and he loves you, and he wants to give you his rest. Just as before we enter into this song, I want to invite you to close your eyes and to focus on your breath. Because there's something about focusing on your breath that brings you into the present moment. That right now, God is sustaining me. That right now, he is breathing into me. That right now, he is willing for me to live. And he's right here with each one of us. The writer Eugene Peterson paraphrases Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 this way. Are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burnt out on religion? Come to me, and I will give you rest. Get away with me, and you will find that I restore your life. I pray that this song will be a blessing to you now.
so faithful and so gracious to us. God, thank you for this breath in our lungs. Thank you for your gift of rest. Thank you for creating it for us. God, I just pray for those of us in this place that are feeling burdened, that are feeling worn out, that are feeling overwhelmed or anxious or just stressed, God, feeling weary. God, we choose to stop, to turn and to look to you and to rest in you, God. We make that decision today, and when things get busy again tomorrow, we'll remember your faithfulness and your provision, and we'll do it again, God. Just thank you for who you are and for all of the gifts you give us. In your powerful name, we pray. Amen.